Most people now don't need to come to you. What they need help with is all of the information that I now have access to. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, dealers had all the information. Now the customer has all the information, but the customer is just as confused as they were when I didn't have the information.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Keep the Change. I am so glad you guys are joining us today, and I know you will be too, because if you've been in automotive for any period of time, if you've studied automotive marketing, if you've had a consultant that is helping you with your business, and you've looked into different consultants, you know who Glenn Pasch is. Glenn Pasch is the CEO of PCG Digital. And it's a dynamic full-service digital marketing agency. And the focus is on empowering dealerships and businesses to do what? Attract more qualified customers. Isn't that what we all want? And his mission, frankly, is to bridge the gap between the customer experience and marketing and helping organizations navigate that complexity of that and, of course, achieve increased sales. So just a great story that he's going to bring to the table for us today. He's the CEO of Pasch Group, and that is an automotive consulting firm. He's also an author, and his new book, Road to Sold, will be released in April. Coming up quick here, Glenn. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Glenn Pasch. Glenn, great to have you on Keep the Change. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Bart, for having me. It is a pleasure to be here today. So excited.
I want to shout out to our friend Michael Cirillo, who brought us together. You know, it's kind of that person that, I don't know how it worked for you, if somebody introduced you to your wife, and from then on, it was a love story forever. But that's
the way I feel about Michael. It's been a love story for a long time.
And you know what? For him to introduce us is a gift, because I'm honored again to have you here. I'm honored to have been on your podcast and all of your talent, frankly. So thanks again. So let's talk business.
Sure.
So Glenn, tell me a little bit about you, your story, how you got to this point, and take us along the path.
Sure. So all the way back, one of 5 boys born in New Jersey. We're all very close in age, about 6 years between all of us. Very middle-class family. My father worked very hard, set a good example, provided for us. But, you know, we also learned to work. All of us have an extremely solid work ethic, that example. And, you know, when you're hustling around as young, you know, from lemonade stands to delivering newspapers to shoveling snow, raking leaves and all of that to make money. And we all have been working. I think I started working at 12. And so very entrepreneurial. Some of my brothers are. I worked in restaurants for years, went to school for business, graduated college, but then I wanted to go to New York to be an actor. And I did that for about 10 or 12 years. Finally said, well, we're not going to make a living doing this. Tried a few other jobs. And then I was building a company. And probably about 15 years now ago, 16, my brother Brian started this agency that we both are partners in now. And he was helping me market, teaching me how to market myself. And this was back when, you know, writing or speaking and, you know, trying to build your brand before that was really a thing. And I'm really good at operations. I'm good at putting things together, building teams, building processes, and he's great with vision and marketing. So he was teaching me how to market. I was helping him build the structure underneath his company. And then one of his employees said, why don't you work together? And we thought, duh, okay, great, sure. We didn't think about it, but we ended up working together. And what's really wonderful is, you know, people ask me, how is it working with your brother? And I said, it's fine. Like, I don't even think about it in that way. It's just, we have 2 different skill sets, and that served us well, both for the running of the company, but also our brands in the marketplace. Brian is seen as someone who is, from a technology standpoint and a data standpoint, and understanding marketing from a data side. I look at data and say, well, what can I do with this data? And how do we build a process? And I'm more from customer experience and, you know, handling the opportunities that dealerships get. And so adds well for our company, but it also helps our clients really become successful because of this end-to-end connection that we deliver.
I think there's such a message there, Glenn, and in so many ways. First of all, Congratulations on the family unit that can all have that work ethic and that your father led the way. That's so powerful.
And my mother, it's funny, like people always say it's your father. Well, my mother, like she had to corral all of these kids and make sure that they, that they went to school and they all were, successful. And so, yeah, I think that the family unit having that, what was expected of you. And I think you can take that into business to, very clear what is expected of you and what your responsibility and repercussions if you didn't do what was necessary. And I think that's very important. And but I also probably think that's a reason why we both have businesses on the consulting side or yours on the coaching side, is sometimes there's a disconnect in this case, in dealerships, where the lines aren't really clearly drawn, processes aren't really clearly drawn, the investment into people is not very clear. A lot of expectations, but not a lot of help sometimes in achieving them.
Yeah, isn't that so true? And it leads to frustration. And wherever I get frustrated, because I think to myself, why don't they see this? I ask myself a question: what's my role in this? Right. But I want to get to, that's a great point, but I want to back up a minute, because you talked about collaboration with your brother. I have an older brother who's much smarter than I am, and he counts the money really well. Matter of fact, he does it on a top level worldwide. And I have so much respect for him as a businessman and as a father and a husband. He's been married a long time. His kids adore him. He's just a great human. And he and I were on the phone one day, and I was saying, can I use you for business advice? And I got to tell you, I haven't done it in the past because I didn't want to hear it. Right? It's like having a therapist or a coach, and you're there, I don't want to hear that. But I think in him saying, yeah, I might tell you some things you don't want to hear, but absolutely. But the collaboration piece works. Not that he's going to be involved in my business. He's going to advise, but it works because his brain works different than mine.
Absolutely.
You probably, you and I have talked about this on your show, or we've talked about it personally, but everybody's different, of course. And your brother's probably more of an IS type personality. He's got a bigger picture, and you're more of a CD personality, where facts are important and you're very structured, is my guess. So, and with my brother, he's a CD personality. He's got every I dotted and every T.
Right.
And he doesn't miss a beat. I mean, he's looking at markets all over the world, and come on, let's move the room. And works. It works because I can help people get from where they are to where they need to be. But he and your brother, again, different personalities that come together to collaborate.
The fact that you reached out to him, I think that's important, because what I've seen and especially in dealerships, which is, again, going back to, there's a need for this. There's a lot of training for frontline. If we're going to talk about service, we're going to talk about sales, we're going to talk about anything. Those people have their road to sale training, or they have a lot of requirements at that front. But once that person, be it a BDC agent goes to a BDC manager, a sales person goes to the sales desk, or moves up to GSM to GM or finance manager, as soon as you tag that manager name after it, there's not a lot of training. There's a lot of expectations, but there's also a lot of assumptions that, well, you are a good salesperson, hence you'll make a good manager. And that may or may not be true. But there are different skills to being a leader of a team that you need to invest in. And the higher up you go, I think the less training you have, or the less resources you have. And to your point, where you got to, you said, I didn't want to hear it. There are people that don't want to hear that until they need it, or they don't know where to turn. And I think sometimes dealer principals may have their 20 groups, maybe not, but who are they bouncing ideas against to say, how can I make my dealership better? Because everyone below me is looking up to me like I have all the answers for everything, and I may or may not, but how am I getting better?
Yeah, so good. You and I were talking about self-awareness when we were offline, and the power of self-awareness. And I think for me, there's nothing that I've taken on that I haven't said I don't want to do it first. in the old days when I had substance abuse issues, humbly speaking, years ago, 40 years ago. And I walked into a rehab center and they're telling me, you're never going to make it. And I fought them until one day when I did, and everything changed and I haven't had a drink since. So, and I think that's true with every human being, no matter what the situation. Sooner or later, we have to admit. So if you're a CEO, if you're a director of a company, whatever it is, you have to admit, what is it that I need help with? That's what happened with you. It's what happened with me. And in that collaboration, Cardone talks about when he 10x'd his business, how did he 10x it? He collaborated with people, and it exploded when he did that. And
he also probably let go of some things that he was doing to, I think, delegate effectively. Glenn, I know of Grant, and you watch his trajectory. It is once he found people below him, and I watched him on a short clip the other day, and he said, it's when I let everything go allowed me to actually be able to grow my business, because I wasn't required to do everything. And once you let that go and you say, I don't have to do all of this anymore, then all of a sudden you have more time, more space to be able to do what you're good at, which in his case is find collaborators. I have my time back to be able to do this. I think that's really important lesson for leaders to truly delegate.
And my self-awareness allowed me to see, first of all, in my career, Glenn, I always loved speaking on stages, as many as possible. That was my thing, because I like the attention, frankly. As I got older, I'm very authentic. As I got older, I thought, no, that's not where I'm being taken. I'm a person of faith. I listen to that. Where I'm being taken is the one-on-ones and the small group people. That's when I've seen this incredible shift. But what happened with that, Glenn, because I gave away the stuff that I wasn't very good at, give it away, give it away, give it away now. I think that's a song by something like that, by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But once I gave it away, then I could focus on what I was best at. So I studied the best coaches in the world. How are they doing it? Not in automotive, because there wasn't any coaches in automotive. I studied world-class coaches. One of them I studied, I'm going to tell a straight secret, was Alan Mullaley's coach. Now, we all know that name if we've been around a while. If you're a Ford dealer, of course you know. Alan Mullaley was the CEO of Ford Motor Company. He came from Boeing, and he had a coach. Yes, he had a confidant. Yes, he had somebody he talked to every single week. And see, I think what happens, and I see it happen in with pastors, I see it happen with CEOs, they don't have anybody to talk to. Manager, right? They don't have any place in that. But Marshall Goldsmith was Alan Mullaley's CEO. So I thought, look, if Alan Mullaley likes Marshall Goldsmith, I'm studying Marshall Goldsmith. And I asked myself, how does that work in automotive? And what I found was, especially, I think my friend Alex Flores said it best. He says, when you walk on the floor at NADA, you need a T-shirt. And your T-shirt should say, who's training your managers? Right. And on the back is your QR code. This is Alex's idea. I'm going to do it next year. So maybe
it's true.
It's true. We train, like you said, Glenn, we train salespeople. We train service writers. Who's training managers? And why is it that we're not? Drew Tutton, who owns 8 stores, who's a friend of this podcast, always says the number one thing I want a manager to do is to be able to train.
Sure.
Well, with what? An empty cup? They've got to have a full cup. And if they're great at training, they're great at one-on-ones, they're great at, then what are they going to do? They're going to develop people. So I figured it out, Glenn, and I want to talk to you about this because I know you do this in your company. I don't want to do sales training. I'll do it if somebody asks me, and I love it, and I'm passionate about it, but that's not what I believe I'm supposed to do. You know what my job is, Glenn? My job is to help managers and dealerships be coaches. And I don't need to be around forever. I want to teach them how to be coaches so they can go do it themselves. That's my thing, right?
Sure. So, and that's the fight, though, with a lot of, as you move up, there are people who are in the chair, and maybe they never received that training. So they're thinking it's not necessary. I figured it out. But just because it wasn't available at that time doesn't mean it's we still have to do it that way. We've evolved in a million different ways. And there's new resources now for salespeople that we didn't have before, right? There's technologies that we're using that are very commonplace that those with experience or years under their belt go, well, we never did it that way, but isn't this better? Why go back? And so to your point is, I believe that is one of the biggest areas of opportunity in automotive is management level training, because it is a completely different skill set to coach and develop people, as well as organizing your day, your time to be able to make sure that the team is hitting their goals, hitting their, their objectives. Well, how are you helping them? And it's not just going to happen because you give someone a title. It just isn't. And they need that investment of time, that idea of, planting seeds and changing behaviors and learning a skill. That all takes time. And that is so counter to the automotive industry, which is the 30-day cycle, immediate results.
So true. Glenn, if you're walking into a store today, this time of your career, with all digitally in terms of marketing, with the expertise that you and your brother bring together in your companies, tell me a little bit about what you would do. You're starting ABC Motors in Seekonk, New Jersey. Why I picked Seekonk? Because it's a big place. Right. Why? What would you do? Walk me through what you would do if you're starting a dealership and you wanted to go to the top level.
Okay. So, well, there's two things. One is, if I was starting a dealership, I'd make sure I'd have to be partners with someone who knows the industry. That's pieces, as we said before, I have no idea. But I think I'll spin it a little differently. If I went into a dealership who was underperforming, what would I be looking at? I would first be looking at, my first month of time there would be watching and asking questions about, I'd be already doing my research of, who are you online? What are your customers, previous customers, saying about your dealership, right? Understanding that, what are you doing in marketing? And then start following the customer all the way through your business. Where does a customer find you? What are they seeing as they move down to contact your team? What's happening? If they come here, what's happening? If they purchase, what's happening, right? So follow that. Same thing, follow a car through the service driver as your acquisition, following all of those things to see first, what do you have in place? I find a lot of times dealerships who are underperforming don't have processes for everything, don't have documented processes. If they do, a lot of people don't know what they are, or there's no accountability to the process. So the default is bring in someone like myself or you and say, hey, I'm going to fix this. Now, there are some trainers out there in the past I've run across who go in and upend everything. And my belief is, let's see how far we can get on your current processes. If we just got everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing, could we fill a gap in lack of sales or revenue? Then you can start saying, okay, we've maxed out what we're currently doing. Let's change some of these to move it forward, because there is wasted spend on marketing. There still is. I heard this conversation this morning. I want more leads. I need more leads, but yet you're not even executing on the lead you currently have, but I need more. So it's more detective work for the first 30 days, but you have to investigate all of those and start figuring out, is it a process problem? Is it a people problem? Execution, leadership? I think that's where the difference of taking a underperforming store to a performing to an overperforming store, those are the keys.
So when you talk about bridging the gap between the customer experience and marketing, tell me a little bit about what that means to you.
Sure. So my question would be, if you were the dealership owner or the leadership team, the first question I'm saying is, why am I buying from you right now? I think, my opinion, pre-COVID, it was, again, a lot of marketing, what we were doing or what clients were coming to us saying. It was very price driven. Here's your lease payment. Here's your manufacturer specials. And the process up for a large number of dealer groups was still get them in, get them in. Don't answer questions. They're going to shop us, get them in, get them in. COVID hit, depending on where you were in New Jersey, everything was locked down. You couldn't go in. So digital retailing was happening beforehand for some dealers, allowing them to use these tools. Everybody threw these tools on, didn't have a brand promise behind them, didn't tell anybody how to use these tools, but the process streamlined because you had to. So customers were talking to managers, deals were done over email, over phone, documents sent, signed, you came in, got your car, you left. After COVID, inventory, if you had the inventory, it happened. So that was just the rules. We are back to, in my opinion, pre-COVID levels of inventory for most people, but the customers changed. The customer already went through that. Some of those people who bought during COVID with a more streamlined process are back in the market. They're expecting that, right? And so now what we're seeing is it's no longer about the car. So I know it's a little bit of a long answer, but we have to get back to this idea of why should I buy from you? Because if you have a Toyota Tacoma and I have a Toyota Tacoma, well, it's the same car, pretty close to the same price. The customer wants to know, well, why should I go with you, or why should I go with you? So that's where I start, is what is different about you? And then I have to build that. It's not price. It's what is your process? What do you do? Who you are? I think that's what customers are looking for. And then that's the marketing piece. Then are your processes internally delivering on that? Because I could say that Bart's dealership is the fastest and the easiest, and do that. But if I don't pick up the phone, or if the person isn't going to answer my question that I ask, well, is that really fast? Is that really easy? Right. So I think that's bridging that gap and making sure every single individual in that store knows what that marketing message is and how their actions impact that. So they deliver on those promises. So we have great customer testimonials. We have great customer retention. We have, as Jonathan Dawson, trainer we both know and love dearly, he'll always say, are you creating raving fanatics? Are you creating those fanatics out there who are saying, hey, if you want a car, go over to Bart's, that's where you go. So I think that's where that bridging in, because we've so many times just been in silos where one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I have another question, though. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at it from a 10,000 foot level. What's the manager's role? The manager that's in the middle, let's say the middle manager, what is their role in getting this accomplished? And in everything that you're talking about, what would you give me some specifics of what would you require your manager to do to have success with creating the culture that you want to create? I'll give you a moment to process through that. I'm sure you already have the answer, but 2 weeks ago, I had Jack Schneider on. Jack owns a company in Scottsdale called Certified Benson Beamer. Mm-hmm. When he got this company 15 years ago, he decided to go one price with his Highlines used cars. Mm-hmm. And he knew one thing. He knew, I'm Highline, period. I'm one price, period. And he put that process in place. And what happened? Well, he had managers that wanted to start negotiating. It's not how we do it. He put the culture in place, and then everybody started drinking the Kool-Aid, excuse the statement.
Right.
And because of that is now his process. It's locked in. Anybody who starts there brand new, maybe they came from another Mercedes store, they're used to negotiating. And he said, nope, that's not how we do it. We give them a price on the trade. We give it to them if they're at home. We give it to them if they're in Mississippi. It's very streamlined and very transparent. So now, no matter what managers he hires from whatever organization, they aren't changing the process. The process is in place. They are adhering to the process. So everybody's singing from the same song sheet. Right. So Susie doesn't hear a different story from Jamie on the desk. Everybody desk deals the same way. The process is the same way, and there's no inconsistency. So having said all that, what do you believe your manager's role is, the middle manager's role is in putting that culture in place?
Well, I think my answer is just even what you just said validates even more what I'm saying, meaning I agree with you 100%. It's not the middle manager. It's the leader at the top who says this is the way it is. And then you build processes around that, and then they deliver on those processes. It's not up. The middle manager has a role to accomplish, whatever that role is. And every store might be different. But if my job, let's say I'm overseeing how we desk deals, well, then there has to be a process. I have to be trained and I have to be held someone above me. Here, to me, that middle manager is going to do what the person above them is allowing them to do, right? Everybody's on someone's team. We forget that, right?
Good.
So if I'm a manager, a desk manager, well, I'm on the GSM's team, and the GSM is supposed to be watching what I'm doing. Their main goal is those, let's say it's a store with 4 desk managers. Their job are those 4 desk managers. Their job is not the salespeople. Those managers' job are the salespeople, right? We have a tendency to go around it and say, well, I'll fix them. No, those are your 4 people. And the general manager, they oversee, again, maybe they're over top of service. So their team is the service director, the general sales manager, the finance manager, the inventory manager, the used car manager, whatever it is. And those 5 people, that's my job. So if it's not clearly defined and delineated, which is what I see happening, is there aren't clear processes. And the other point that is, I came, as I mentioned, from hospitality, and it didn't matter, right? I worked at some very high-end restaurants in New York City, and I learned a lot from one of my mentors. He very successful. Like the average lifespan of a restaurant in New York City is under a year. And he passed away, or else it would, and it still went on. But he had 2 restaurants. I think he had 3 over his lifetime, and they all were 15, 20 years plus. So he knew what he was talking about. And he said, everything has to be documented. We have to deliver the same experience. And this was prior to cell phones and social media. But he said, if Bart comes and has a great experience and he goes and tells Glenn, hey, go to this restaurant. If Glenn comes and we don't deliver, well, 1, we lose Glenn as a customer, but more importantly, Bart looks bad, right? So we have to deliver on, but everything was delineated. And the key was, anytime they got a new manager, they were brought in to run this process, not change the process. How many times in a dealership we bring in a new general manager and they change every way they do everything. And then 6 months later, that person's gone and we bring someone else in and we change everything again. And that's why salespeople and employees are like, why should I listen? In 30 days, we're going to change this process again. And if you can learn from, like, I talked to someone yesterday who was talking about, well, why can't we get these young people to work? I'm saying it's funny that Chick-fil-A can get these people to work. Because we have a process and it's non-negotiable. If you don't want to say whatever their tagline is, our pleasure or whatever it is, you don't work there. It's non-negotiable. And I think that the fear of, I can't find people. I can't find good people, so I have to put up with somewhat bad behavior versus, well, what if it was really machine-like? Wouldn't I attract more people who want that environment?
Oh, Glenn, I've got like 19 nuggets I have to. Will Garda, Unreasonable Hospitality.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable book. Well, every car dealer should read that book, right?
It should. And also Setting the Table, Danny Meyer's book, who Will worked for. And the mentor I was talking about was Danny Myers. Danny Meyer worked for him. And I almost worked for Danny Meyer's restaurant. It was his owners, his mentors, or Danny. I applied to both of them. Danny's process took a little longer. No, and then I went to the other one because I needed the money. But I knew a lot of people who worked for Danny, and it was super consistent. They did training every single day. They talked about wine, talked about service, and Danny was always on the floor watching everybody and jumping in to help, but he was constantly watching to go, this level of service has to stay this way. It wasn't, oh, well, I told him once and let's hope. Great book. Great book.
Yeah. Set the Table, right?
Setting the Table was Danny Meyer's book, and also Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah. I was talking to David Long about that, Unreasonable Hospitality. And again, every dealer should do it. Read it. David did, and he leads that way a lot in his stores. And I think that, I'm not going to say where I was, because I'm passionate about changing the industry. So are you. So, my mentor was a guy named Jay Eustace Woofington, founder of Half a Car, and he was passionate about changing the industry. And I'm passionate about changing the industry one manager at a time. But when I'm in certain neighborhoods, I'm not going to say where I am, but I'd love to. and 18 salespeople are standing up front. I'm just wondering, right? I just wonder what kind of message is being sent from the top, right? And I get it. People drive up, but this was an auto mall where nobody drives up, but there's 18 people standing up front, right? And I'm sure that really, it probably gets those hairs on the back of your neck standing up. That don't they get it? Don't they get it? That if we put this processes in place, you're going to have higher closing ratios. You're going to have more retention. You're going to have happier customers.
Again, you can't blame the salespeople because they're allowed to do this.
No.
And then, but when I talk to stores and I talk to salespeople, and this, I think we're hopefully finally moving, and that's what my new book is focusing on, is this idea of, I've had the conversation many times. Is a BDC right? Internet sales team? Should salespeople handle online leads? Should BDC? And I've seen them all work and I've seen them all fail. So it's not that. What dawned on me a few years ago was if I drove up in your example and a salesperson came out to greet me, they would treat me completely differently than if I submitted a lead online. If I submit a lead online, I get asked one question: when do I want to come in? And I get that question 5 times. And then if I don't respond, they go, oh, I'm not serious. All that did was make me go to someone else and go to someone else and go, oh, someone helps me. But if I drove on the lot, it's 50 questions and conversations and all of this because I'm there. And it dawned on me as they were when I didn't have the information.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to reach out. The problem is that in your example, I'm looking for serious people. If they drive up, they're serious. Those online people, they're not serious. But yet, every one of those 18 will use Uber Eats or DoorDash to get their lunch.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were serious, they'd go get it themselves. If they were really serious, they'd cook their own food.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But they use Amazon every day. So the online shopper is serious. The other piece, and this is where connecting marketing to them, I will guarantee you the next time you go in, here's something for you to do. Next time you go in and you work with sales teams, even that manager, ask them how many people do they think go on their dealership website in a month. And I'll guarantee you, you will get answers like 500, 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000. No one's going to tell you that it's 25 to 30,000. And when you say there's 25,000, they're going, well, where is everybody? They're not ready to talk to you yet. So that means that the people who do talk to you, those 5 to 10% of those people, they're ready to start a conversation. Didn't say they're ready to buy a car. They're ready to have a conversation, except we think everybody who submits their name wants to buy today, and we design a process. But my point is, that's that idea of if I drove up, you wouldn't say, all right, get in, test drive, buy today. You're going, where are you? What's going on? So that's that idea of change. They don't know that all of those people online, all of those people, they don't get it. Once they do, they're like, holy God, these people are serious. And I'm like, yes, they are. And then their attention starts treating them to say, if I'm not in front of somebody, I better be on front, trying to get in front of somebody online and have that conversation, have that great experience, win them over to come into the dealership and do business with me.
That is so good. You know, I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I've been reading a lot about other industries. Like I have a son that's in real estate, and in a market where the average home is 1.2 million. And he has to be really good at what he does. He's got to be really good at making sure that he makes his calls, that he says the right things, that to know how to make calls, all the things, all the pieces. And I believe in our industry, that's really true. I've got clients all over the country from big markets to small markets, and I've got some in small towns. And if they're going to just wait for people to come in, I feel for them, man. You know, that's what's interesting about Jack's store. And he doesn't do everything perfectly. I'm not saying he doesn't. He wouldn't either, but there's nobody standing out front. Right. And phone ups, they dive. I remember in the old days when I would dive for a phone up. They dive for phone ups because they know they're the real deal. Right?
But think about maybe Jack's store, there might be someone outside, but it's one person.
Right.
And they rotate because he goes, I don't need 18 people I need one. Go stand out there. I have clients that are very busy, but they'll have two people out there and they rotate around. And if they're not out there, they're in front of their computer, handling leads, handling phone ups, reaching out, trying to have a conversation with someone online, just like I'm hoping somebody will drive up so I can have a conversation. That's why Jack's successful. It sounds like, just listening to you, is he has a clear way of doing business. He's marketing that. They're delivering on that. Every employee is clear on that. They're held accountable to that. If you're not willing to do it, you can't work here. Still, you're a nice person, but you can't work here.
Right.
And so everybody knows what their job is every day. And more importantly, they know where the customers are, and the customers are online, calling me, submitting leads, or in my chat, or I've removed forms from my website and now they're in my digital retailing tool. And it's Jack's saying, find somebody to talk to.
Right.
That's really what my book is about, is talking about a whole different way of looking at it. But your team should every day be thinking about, how many conversations do I need to have with people? Because if I have conversations, I'm setting appointments.
Amen. That's so good. Sounds like we talked about managers' role in this. We talked about having, who's training your managers. It sounds like every manager should be reading that book, because they should be. It shouldn't just be for salespeople, right? It should be for managers that are speaking that same song, that singing the same song that you're talking about.
Oh, and that's what I wrote. I wrote this book for everybody. There's parts of it that everybody needs to read. There's parts of it that will say, this is the agent's responsibility, be it a BDC agent or the salesperson. This is a manager's responsibility. Here's how you should organize your day. There is a coaching process in the book to say, here's how you coach somebody to improve performance. Here's metrics here, right? So everybody should read it. It has something for everybody, but it aligns everybody to understand that we are in a different environment now, where speed is of the essence, information access, everyone has it, but everyone still is looking for help, looking for guidance, looking for a human to help me with this, in this case, this purchase, or getting my car fixed. We still need people, but if we're not delivering on that, if we're still thinking, well, they're not serious till they get here, you're going to lose so much to the David Longs of the world. If David's in your market, he's going to take those people because he's going to be willing to have those conversations and take time and earn their trust. And you're wondering, why are we losing people? Because you're still antiquated.
Think about what you said about Danny. What do you do every day? You trained
every day.
You said we trained every day. Whoa. They're the number one store. I mean, the number one restaurant. They have number one restaurants in one of the biggest cities in the world, one of the most competitive cities in the world, and they trained every day. I think, whoa. I talked to my friend Drew Chutton, and I said, what's the number one thing that you want your managers to do? He said, train.
Absolutely.
I said, how often? Train.
Every day.
I said, and I know that because I train as managers how to train their salespeople, right?
But training a lot of time, and I'd love your opinion on it, but this is what I see, is that word training is not really understood, because what they're saying is, well, that's classroom, or they're only saying, well, that's a one-on-one, and I don't have a half an hour. And so what I learned in the restaurant industry, and especially from his mentor, was, yes, you had training before the shift about the specials, about wine, about service. So just give you an idea of, just quickly, when I went to go apply, I had already worked in restaurants for a good 10 years, at least 10 years. And I worked at decent restaurants. When I went to interview, there was a line of people there who wanted to work at this restaurant. They handed you the menu. It was a one-sheeter. Said, come back tomorrow. We're going to ask you about what you read on the menu. Came back the next day, and they said, okay, what comes with the fish? What sauce is this? Was it? If you didn't know, they said, thank you. I was like, what's going on here? I have all this experience. They said, that's nice, but so great. You understand how to work in a restaurant. We're going to show you how we do it here. So I had to follow somebody, and they showed me what to do. The next day I came in, they kept saying, I still had to follow that person. And they said, where do we go next? What do we do now? They wanted to see if I remembered what it was. And I would say, we have to go here. Great. The third time I was there, I had to go sit in the kitchen and watch all the food. So I understood what it was. The fourth day, I They followed me. So where are you going? What are you doing? And then I didn't have to do the 5th day because I caught on, but it was that they weren't going to let you just go, great, you're hired, go do what you do. They showed you, they quizzed you. And at any time, if you screwed up once or twice, they're like, you're not taking it seriously. Goodbye. That's that idea of implementation. So to your point, what we're saying is training is classroom, yes, but those managers, they could go walk around the sale. That's what Danny used to do. Walk around and watch what's going on, right? Get off of the chair, go out and see if they're doing it. Listen to what they're saying as they're walking by. Bart, what do we do when we do this? If somebody comes up and says this, what do you say? That's training. That's real training. That's the important stuff. That's what makes it sticky. But if you just think, well, I taught it in a class and done, or if the manager sits and says, well, they should know how to do this. If you're not actively watching, right? That's what Danny Meyer did. Watch, and he would come over, come here a minute. We're supposed to remember, we do this. Come here a minute. We'll do this. Or he'd say, hey, that was really great. I heard you say that, right? But he was like a hawk, and his mentor was a hawk constantly on. You turn around and he's just standing there watching you, and you're like, holy God. Or God forbid, I was new. I walked up, lo and behold, guess who was sitting down with his friends? The owner. And I had to wait on him. Holy God, was I sweating bricks, and that to me is what the best dealerships do. They are constantly involved in the execution of that experience. That's what builds culture.
And that's so powerful. We used to, when I was with Half a Car, we devised a list of 8 questions that a desk man would ask when coming up to the desk. And when a salesman came up the desk, and some desk managers, already asked questions, but then there are stores that say, nope, this is the way we're going to do it. Guess who has those list of questions at their desk? Jack does. Sure. And he's one of the stores. So they ask the same questions every time. Where do you go in your demo? Tell me about that. So tell me, have you talked money? How was that discussion? Do you think these people are ready to go? Those types of questions, right? Would they tell me a little bit about their car? What happened when you took it around the block? Those types of questions. Anyhow, the reason I say that is, and you opened this can of worms, so I'm going to dig in real quick. You said, I want your opinion. Okay, I'll give you mine. Trainers train dogs. That's what my opinion is. Coaches coach football teams. And I get that. I get pivot and coaching are the 2 biggest words in the 2020s. I get it. But when we think coaching is a lot of things. Coaching is facilitating. Coaching is teaching. Coaching is getting in front, doing it. There's a lot of great things in coaching. But the great leaders that move performance, you know this, right? We're 2 brothers having a cup of coffee here. The thing that moves performance. Hey, Johnny, tell me what you did right today. Johnny, why'd that work for you? Johnny, tell me a little bit about what happened when you went on that demo drive. And after the customer came back, they said they were going to take off. What happened? What do you think you could have done different? When you and I, and this is where most high D personalities struggle. When you and I tell them, do this, do this, do this, they're not getting it. They're just defensive. I know, because I've been there. Sure. When you and I asked them, so what was your process? What was your thinking during that? Now their brain, their conscious and their subconscious are, boop, I did this. Now they've got an awareness. They got a whole new vision. That's where change happens. Now, if you and I as a coach can be activators where we're really asking, listening, and then we build this trust, now we can tell them anything and they're going to hear us. Now, could that break? Sure, it could.
But going back to your 8 questions, ideally, every time you come up to the desk, I ask you 8 questions. My goal is that I don't have to ask the questions.
Amen.
In 2 weeks, you come up and you're going to just go, okay, this, and then we can move on.
Conditions.
Right? And then to your point about coaching and wording, that's why I like calling them coaches versus managers. Managers are, when you say that word, people go, oh, they're behind a desk. Right. Managers manage numbers. Managers manage things. Coaches do people. So I've always said to someone, what did you like about your coach? And they tell you they were involved. And I said, okay, let's think about this. Where were coaches during practice. They're like, well, they're out with us. And what are they doing? They're telling us, great, come here a minute. Bart, where are you supposed to be on that play? Right. And they get you going, or they're saying, great job, Bart. Right. But where are they during game time? They're on the sideline. Are they playing the game? Nope. But what are they doing? They're watching you. They're watching you and they're pulling you over and they're saying, come here a minute, run here, do this, do what? That's the piece that I was saying before, is that we could be the best coach in the world, in the locker room, in the training facility, even in the practice field, which is the training room. But they're not actively out there, in my opinion, enough for some of the underperforming dealerships. The other, they're not out actively watching the game being played every day, watching their people execute, right? Are they practicing on their customers, which they shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm watching it, then I can see, I can maneuver, and is that customer experience, right? So then again, that goes back to where are they physically located in the dealership? Do we have the flexibility to move people's desks out of offices and put them on the floor, or part of their day is on the floor, or I don't know. All I know is the most successful restaurants that I worked at, the dealerships that I am blessed to go into and I learn from every single day, the ones that are constantly improving, has an element of someone is watching the game being played, not just managing metrics off of a page.
Yeah, amen. So guess who does that? Back to Jack. So, you know what? They have a spreadsheet. I mean, Jack is a person of details like you are. And the spreadsheet every day has a manager's name at the top on an Excel spreadsheet. And they have one every day. It's made up every morning. And at the bottom, it's got all the salespeople. And the manager knows who he's going to do his daily one-on-one with.
Yep.
Now, that daily one-on-one on a Thursday might be for 20 minutes. It might be a little bit more in depth. It might be a real process, coaching / training -- interaction. He still has his Friday morning meetings with everybody, but there could be 10-minute check-ins and look, if it's not in writing, I'm going to probably forget to do it. Same thing with them. They're really busy. Oh yeah, I got to do a 10-minute with Jimmy at 10 o'clock. Come on, walk over there, Jimmy. How are we doing?
But if you're doing a one-on-one, I would challenge that gentleman, that manager, to say, does Jimmy know you're coming, right? That should, now there's that combination that I think is always, in my opinion, works, is that once a month we're having a one-on-one.
Yep.
And we know that it's the third Thursday, and we do it from 2 to 2:30, and it's in our calendar. So I know you're coming. I know what I, as this salesperson, need to come to the meeting with, to the training with. You're going to come. There's no surprise. Like, come here, man, let me talk to you. You're like, oh God, am I getting fired? Now, the other, what I call drive-by training, right? Walk right up and say, what do we do with this? What do we do with this? What do we do with that? That can happen anytime. And what I'm trying to do is trigger your brain to be ready if the customer asks that question, and you don't have to think about it, right? But I've seen training where they pull people in and people don't even know, and they're, why am I here? And so that training, half of your time is calming them down that, no, you're not getting fired. This is just this. Well, am I in trouble? Is it versus, no, this is our training time. And then I'm looking forward to Bart's coaching to go, all right, Bart, this is our time. And hey, I was struggling with this, and this is what I need help on, or whatever it is. That's a time for both people, not just to check the box because it's my manager's one-on-one. It's creating an environment that both sides look forward to. We're addressing what we're working on. What are we working on? What's the one thing we're working on this month? Where are we at? What's going on? Addressing any concerns, having the culture that I can say, I'm struggling with this and I'm not getting fired, or, hey, I don't like this. But that has to be built in where both sides expect it, or else it's not going to be a great environment for learning and getting better.
Right. And I think to take that to another level, yes, it's got to be on the calendar. Any training has to be, right? Or any one-on-ones have to be. So there's no surprise. I love that. And what Gallup says is that part of that, number one, set expectations. There's an expectation. People know they're going to do a weekly, not a monthly, but a weekly one-on-one with their boss. But they're also going to have check-ins. There's some organizations that have 10, 12, 2 and 4 check-ins where everybody comes to the desk. What Jack's guys do is they walk the floor and they check in and say, hey, Jamie, what's going on, man? What's on your mind? What do you need help with? What can I help you with? What are you struggling with today? Anything?
Exactly.
Great. And it's a quick, and then boom. But it's constant. Like you said, you're always on the playing field. You're right there with them. It's constant. Can everybody do that? Not every manager can do that. But in the stores that I led, there was always a manager out there doing that. And they were talking to customers and talking to their salespeople, and they were connecting with them, asking questions.
You're getting a sense of what's really going on instead of, and you're doing it in real time versus what happened. We'll talk about what happened yesterday, but also if I see what's going on, one, I can address it right in the minute. You know, again, going back to restaurants, if all of a sudden somebody raises their hand, the manager can step right in versus somebody just going, is anybody paying attention to me? I need help. Same thing in the dealership. If all of a sudden somebody looks sort of confused, somebody should be like swoop right in to say, hi, what can I do to help you?
Yeah, that's so good. And the best restaurants, you see that. There could be, it's not, I don't do that. Right? That's not my job. We need to land here in about a minute and a half, or a couple minutes. But I've got one of my clients that is a new client that had a conflict because one of the people, they were short of somebody who cleaned a vehicle. A detail person got promoted. That's what I'm trying to spit out. And one of the managers said, hey, I need this person that we just promoted to go detail.
Right.
And his boss said, no, he got promoted. You didn't set the expectation that he might have to go back to detail. And because of that, he doesn't want to. And with the discussion, what we figured out was Billy, let's call him Billy, who got promoted. If you had set the stage with Billy, I might need you to detail 5 or 6 times a month until we get somebody hired. That's setting the expectation. If you don't do that, then you're breaking trust with that person. But here's the point. That's one of the points, but here's the other one. Somebody has to step in and do it. Nobody in that organization, what happened is 2 people said, that's not my job. And what I'm hearing you say in the restaurant business is nobody ever says that's not my job.
They have to take care of the customer first. Later on, they discuss, well, what happened? Someone said, well, that's not my job. And say, well, let's find the breakdown and figure out what happened. But the immediacy is the customer needs to be taken care of now. We'll figure it out later. The customer is always first. Their experience is key over anything else. Off stage, backstage, we'll figure out what happened, who dropped the ball, why did it drop, we'll fix it, we'll train, retrain, but we are not having that on stage. That's the way, and again, in New York, a lot of actors, they used to say, we're on stage. Yes. Backstage is in the kitchen. You can go do it, but when you're out here, everything's great. It's like a Broadway show. Everything is great. You don't know. If something falls, you think, oh, that's part of the play. And later on, they're going, that shouldn't have happened. All how you react for the customer.
Yeah, beautiful. So good. There's so many nuggets here, Glenn. Thank you so much. So Glenn, tell us a little bit about, you've given us some real good information on your book. It's going to be out in April, right?
Yeah, the goal is early April, and we're doing the book launch, getting it going, and then we'll have some copies at our event in Scottsdale, the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, April 27th through the 29th.
Good. And I want to stop in and see you there, 27th, 29th in Scottsdale. That's awesome. The book is called The Road to Sold. Glenn Pasch, CEO of PCG Digital, and of course, the You're in Charge podcast. My friend, it has been so great to hang out with you. You're brilliant. I thank you for sharing your journey with us and what you're doing to change an industry. Tell us how people can get a hold of Glenn Pasch.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm on social media as Glenn Pasch or G Pasch everywhere. LinkedIn's usually one of the best places, or you can go to my own website, glennpasch.com, or the PCGdigital.com website. But yeah, usually LinkedIn, message me there, and I respond, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions, help any way I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Glenn. Had a wonderful time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.